So I'm Julian and I live in Southbourne on the south coast of England. I was born in 1968 and grew up in Bournemouth. I have my own business here, which is actually just on the outskirts of Bournemouth. And I have a family, 2 kids, raised and brought up in this town as well. So growing up in Bournemouth was great, I'd have to say. My school time at primary school, I went to a school called St Michael's School up on the West Cliff, and it was just a great school. All the teachers were amazing. My headmaster, Mr. Williams, he was a great guy. They were actually regular customers of my parents' restaurant, which my mum mentioned, Kahaani restaurant. A little bit embarrassing at times because basically when they used to come for meals, Mum and Dad would drag me down from upstairs and I'd have to go and stand next to them, so that was a little bit embarrassing. But other than that, it was a great school. From there, I basically went on to a school called Homefield, which was a private school, just in the edge of the New Forest. Again, it was a strong school in terms of discipline. They were very much sort of into the cadets, so RAF and Army, that type of thing. And so it was an enjoyable time for me. And then I went on to do my A-levels at Bournemouth School for Boys. So I didn't suffer any racism in the main. There was one occasion where I had a little incident during my secondary time at school, and it was all based around Lenny Henry, and he thought I was part of the Lenny Henry group, and so he used to tease me and that kind of thing, but I put a stop to that within about a week. But apart from that, no, I've always had great friends, have basically pretty much all been English friends. As I went through later part of my school life, there were a few more overseas people, Iranians, Chinese, no Bengalis as such, and in fact no Indians either. So I spent a lot of my time with English people. My best friends are English, and so it was no problem for me. I had a great time during my school life. I think the community, the sort of Asian community, was still very small in Bournemouth. And you know, Mum and Dad basically came to Bournemouth, and it was quite a bold step, I would say, to sort of come to a town where actually there wasn't any, much in terms of Asian community. But I think basically the school that I went to, it was kind of sort of medium level of people kind of thing. So I think it was just a very much a strong English school, and it was quite a small school as well. So I think it was that probably was a factor in it. I think some of the bigger schools may have had some more Asian people in it, but I never really came across that many. I was never embarrassed about my parents, actually. My dad was basically, obviously, at that stage, a super cool guy. He dressed really well and had the great sunglasses and the sports cars and that type of thing. And my mum was just so beautifully dressed. So I never really found it embarrassing. And then it never actually even crossed my mind about that. So, when sort of picking up at the school gates, that type of thing, Mum will know that basically that, I didn't want to leave Mum to go into school. And I was always really happy when she came to pick me up. And occasionally Dad would come and do the same thing. But during my time, no, I was never embarrassed about them. I was always proud about the way that they, had their individuality, if you like, at the time. So growing up with restaurateurs, if you like, was again just an amazing experience. I think it was my fifth birthday. Dad basically pretty much had all the dignitaries and important people of Bournemouth come to my birthday. I mean, I was dressed up all really fancy in a tuxedo and flowery sort of shirts and things, and it was just an amazing period of time, actually. So, but I did work in the restaurant, and I used to help my mum and dad where I could, and it was great fun. We had a lot of staff back in those days. My aunties also were in the building. They lived above the restaurant. So I had all my close family next to me, and also, the staff were just amazing. Um, One of the waiters, he was into Bruce Lee, and he would take me up into his bedroom and show me nunchuckers and things like that, and how to do martial arts. Then my best friend worked in the restaurant with me at the weekends, and we used to have such a laugh all the time. So it's I would say it was a magical period of time, really, for us. For me growing up, it was just nothing to report bad, to be honest. So I'm really proud of my parents. I mean, they're what I'd class as just great immigrant stock. They've come from a different country, and they've come here with nothing, and they've made a great life for themselves, and they've given me and my sister, the best that they could. They brought us into town, and I think this is kind of like some vision that they had for them, for us as a family. That actually living in an area like this, for example, which is, as I said before, it's a strong move. It's a kind of almost like an outlier type move, because you're coming to a place whereby there isn't really that much of a community, and all the sort of services and things that a lot of Asian people are used to nowadays. They didn't have any of those sorts of things then. So they worked really hard. They had an extremely successful business. They've really made a name for themselves in Bournemouth for that. Everybody knew where that restaurant was. And, off the back of that, they had a lot of competitors as well. A lot of people sort of thought, they can't have the monopoly here. So, quite a few restaurants opened in and around the town centre. But they had a great business. And, I think it's just their background of this kind of honest, hard-working, Dad always basically says to me, it's not about making the millions. It's just basically that if you serve as many people as you can, then the rewards will come. And both of them have just worked so tirelessly. And I would have to say that, just like in my business, when I have an estate agent's business, my business is very much governed about the general economics of the country, of the world, etc. They've been through their tough periods, like the oil crisis in the 70s, for example. And they put me through private school, and to keep me in private school. And the thing was, I never knew the hardship that they were going through to keep me in private school, to keep my uniform, and to keep me going to the activities and things. I never actually knew that they were actually going through a hard financial time in order to keep me at that school. So I would basically say that their core is just honest, hard-working, people, and genuinely authentic people. So in terms of cultural aspect, I would say that I have a split identity, because I value all of the things that my parents have taught me, and there are lots of beautiful things in our Asian culture, but there are also some old-fashioned things which probably are more difficult to adopt, particularly in a modern setting. But I think I think I'm settled with the way that I am. I do appreciate, and I do like our Asian culture, but I also, my natural habitat is basically that I do spend a lot of time with English people. Like I said before, my school life was all with English people, and in fact all my working life was with colleagues and things, was always with English people. So I have a very two identities, if you like, but that's okay for me. I mean, I'm happy, I'm comfortable with that arrangement. I can mix with all different types of people, people from all different nations, and that's what I find interesting about all aspects of of life. So I'm very much open to everything. In fact, I recently went on a trip to the Arctic, and I spent a lot of time with Chinese people. And it was just very interesting to get to know Chinese people over 2 weeks. But this is something that we don't normally get an opportunity to do. So, I do appreciate all of these things. For me, working and living in this town, I think I found a place whereby I'm happy with, I'm comfortable with. I think, it's not been easy at times, particularly bringing up my kids here, trying to explain to them that, these are our cultures. This is where this is where your dad is basically, essentially his origins are from Bangladesh. And they have an English mum. So, again, we have a split in terms of the identity. But they do appreciate it as well. My kids basically very much, they love coming to see their grandparents, and they like getting involved when they can. So yeah, I think it's great to have a broad, open mind to everything. In terms of my language, I don't speak Bengali. I speak a dialect of Bengali, which is Sylheti. I have to say that basically that when I speak Sylheti, it sounds like a pigeon trying to speak, because it's just not from practicing. There were times in my life when we used to go to Bangladesh quite regularly, and my aunties would sit me down and actually, teach me how to write Bengali and speak some Bengali. But again, it's not something that I use in my day-to-day language. 99% of the time I speak English with my parents, and they speak 75% English back to me. When they're giving me when my dad gives me a lecture and he gets angry with me, then he'll start speaking in Bengali or something like that. But essentially, it's we speak English most of the time, so I don't really practice the language, and my kids basically don't speak Bengali or Sylheti at all.